All right, we'll be continuing our module 10 on the Azure AD identity protection and self-service password reset. So we'll be finishing module 10 in this 45 minutes, hopefully. So we will talk about the Azure AD identity protection, risk events, user and sign risk policies, and secure best practices. So in nowadays the IT environment, the malicious users are use the we call the credential theft attacks as one of the main methods to gain access to your environment. So it doesn't matter if it's more than its old days, it's the same, right? The credential theft attackers, are those in which they are initially gains the highest privilege access to a computer on a network and then use freely available tools to extract credentials from the sessions of other logged in accounts. So depending on the system configuration, the credentials can be extracted in form of hashes, tickets, or plain text passwords, etc., etc. And many IT professionals believe that the identity is the new boundary layer for security and supplanting that role from the traditional network-centric perspective, which is true nowadays as well. And Microsoft has secured cloud-based identity for more than a decade, right? Since it started the Office 365 in a way, or Azure AD Identity Protection is a service which helps to wander off the compromised user accounts and the configuration vulnerabilities. This service enables you to use the same protection system Microsoft used to secure identities in your environment. The service is available for the Azure Marketplace and must be set up by a organization global admin, and Azure AD Identity Protection is available to subscribers to Microsoft Enterprise Mobility Suite, so EMS, and the Azure AD Premium P2. Okay, so this enables you, identity protection enables you to detect potential risks affecting your identities or configure automated response to detect suspicious actions, which we're going to introduce later, and investigate suspicious incidents and appropriate actions to resolve them. All right. So let's switch to this view here. So this is the actually Azure AD identity protection panel. You can see here. So this dashboard gives you access to report such as user flagged for risks, risk events, and the vulnerabilities, and also give you access to settings as the configuration of your secure policies, notifications, and multi-factor authentication restoration, right? So I can show you it real quick. So for my environment, but still I don't have anything to show you actually. So it's blank from my side, right? Because it's a demo account. I don't have any risks detected for now. So I'm gonna skip to the next one, right? We're gonna see all of the settings here. You can see there's a user risk policy and a sign risk policy, right? So what are those? For the we call the Azure AD risk events, right? There is a one, two, three, four, five. Actually, there are six, right? So the vast majority of security breaches occurs when attackers or hackers gain access on the environment by stealing a user's identity. Discovering compromised identities is not, to be honest, not an easy task. The Azure AD directory uses adaptive machine learning algorithm to detect suspicious actions that are related to your user accounts. And each detected suspicious action is stored in a record called risk events. And currently, Azure actively detects 6 types of risk events. Here's only 5, right? So didn't show 6. The first one is called leaked credential and sign from anonymous IP address. A third one is impossible travel to typical locations. Oops, sorry. And sign from unfamiliar locations. Sign from affected devices. Right. So there are several ideas here that might be, I would say, it's confusing, right? What's the difference between anonymous IP address and like impossible travel distance, right? Or difference from unfamiliar locations between the impossible travel location, right? So here's the definition of those. So from the point of anonymous IP address, so this risk event type identify users who have successfully signed in from an IP address that has been identified as an anonymous proxy IP address. So these proxies are used by people who want to hide their device IP address and may be used for malicious intent. And for the impossible travel distance, right, locations, this one identified two sign originating from geographic distant locations, where at least one of the locations may be, typical for the user. So given past behavior, etc., etc. So among the several other factors, this we call machine learning algorithm takes into account the time between the two sign-ins and the time it would have taken for the user to travel from one location to the other. So indicating that a different user is using the same credentials. So if you want to simulate this one in your environment in a way or test it out, the easy way I can think of is you change your proxy. Sorry, proxy is giving you the first one, right? You change your DNS server or you change your how to say the user VPN, right? You can connect to different locations in just several seconds. And unfamiliar location, right? So this one considers a past sign-in location, right? The IP, latitude, longitude, to determine the what we call the unfamiliar locations. The system stores information about previous locations used by the user and considers the they must be the familiar location, and the racing event is triggered when the sign-in occurs from a location not already in the list of familiar locations. And the system, which is Azure, has an initial learning period of 30 days, during which it does not flag any new location as unfamiliar locations. And the system also ignores signing from familiar devices and the locations that are geographically close to the familiar location. For example, I sign from home and I sign from office, right? That's only 24 kilos from each other. It's quite far actually in Shanghai from the downtown to actually the suburb area, what we call it. And also not showing the screen is the sign in from IP address with suspicious activity risk event. So the risk event type identify IP address from which a high number of failed sign-in attempts were seen across multiple user accounts over a short period of time. So this matches traffic patterns of IP address used by the attackers and is a strong indicator that accounts are either already or about to be compromised, right? Because we talk about this fine, there's a number 6 one. Okay. And user policy, finally, right? User policy, high, low, and medium. The Azure AD analyzes each user sign-in from evidence of a compromised account for any suspicious activity, also known as we call here risk events in Azure. Right? So for risk events that our system detects, you can resolve those events manually, or you can configure conditional access policy, which apply to a specific user risk level or the sign-in risk level. So the topic describes the user risk policy and how to configure it. And the system can detect some risk events in real time, but other risk events require more time to analyze patterns and behaviors, such as risk events arising from impossible travel distance. The system needs time to be able to distinguish between a sign based on a user's regular behavior and a typical sign. So if the location are geographically distant and the time delay between the sign is insufficient for the user to have attempt to sign from that location, right, to travel to there, that is an indication that the account has been likely compromised and where a different user is using the user's credential. So you might see this actually from banks sometimes, because I do have this. The bank doesn't give you this, but you do see the credential theft for your bank account, right? So for example, I think it's beginning of this year, I saw $600 was consumed in Hong Kong, where I'm in Shanghai, and I just use that in GoDaddy to buy a domain. So it cannot be happening in an hour. I cannot travel to Hong Kong. So I called the bank immediately, and they canceled that uh, consumption, and they sent me a new card. So, but for the banks, they don't really for me at least the perspective is they don't have this mechanism to stop that, right? Or they at least call me, right? Hey, we detect someone stripped your card in Hong Kong, but an hour ago you were in Shanghai, but they didn't ask me, right? Okay. So some of the best practice here actually. So when setting the user risk policy, it is recommended you balance the organizational and productivity impact of a high threshold with the less um, straight levels of a medium and low. So a medium threshold provides a balance between usability and security, right? And also when setting the policy, use a high threshold during initial policy rollout, or if you must reduce the chance challenges seen or by the end user. So I use a low threshold if your organization requires greater security, and selecting a low threshold introduce additional user sign-in challenges, but also increased security, right? So now let's switch back to this page here for the user policy, right? So here are the settings, right? So we see there's the users. Actually, you can also select the group, individual and group users, right? From here, you can select a bunch of users or exclude them from this list. And it's not loading. Well, anyway, you saw me here. I selected all the users, right? Anyway, and the conditions, user risk, median and above, low, high, right? So close that. And controls, whether you allow them to access or not. So block or allow. And you see the allow access have a check mark, a checkbox for require password change, right? But the thing is, if you uncheck that, right? If you uncheck, you click select and you go back, you see it's checked as well. So this is not really an option. Like it's not optional. It should, right? It must be checked actually. So let's leave it at that. And if you have this, so I want to show you actually. So I have one here, but since I own this is a demo account, so I can show you earlier the screenshot I took, right? And the main admin account is at risk, right? To help you and only you get back to admin to this account, we need you to verify identity. And we verify you, right? This is the MFA kicks in, right? Text or call. After that, I have to change my password. So that's where you saw that. You must change the password, right? Okay. Oops. And let me close this. And you see the review. So it tells you how many users potentially will be affected of this. So 0 out of 137, right? Because I don't have any risk user at this moment yet. Okay. Now let's switch back to the PowerPoint, right? We talk about sign-in risk policy. So with the user risk, Azure AD detect the probability that a user account has been compromised. As an administrator, you can configure user risk conditional access policy to automatically respond to a specific user risk level, right? Low, medium, high. Azure AD detects the risk events type in real time and offline as well. So each risk event that has happened detect for a user sign in for a user contributes to a risk sign in, right? A risk sign in signifies a possible attempt to perform a sign in by someone other than the legitimate owner of the associated user account. Azure AD analyzes each user sign in with the intention of detecting suspicious actions or risk events that comes along with the sign in. For example, one of the risk events discussed in previous slides, such as sign in attempts through an anonymous IP. So based on the risk events detected, Azure AD calculates a value representing the probability, right, low, medium, high, that the sign not performed by the legitimate user. The probability is referred to as sign risk level, right, low, medium, high again. Some of the important considerations. So if you want to require MFA for risk sign-ins, just to recall our previous session on MFA, right? It's recommended to set up for all the users by default, right? So enable the MFA restoration policy for the affected user and require those users to sign in to a non-risky risky sessions to perform the MFA restoration. So in addition to the best practice in the previous topic, please also consider omit the users who are likely to generate a lot of false positive, for example, the developers or security analysts, and also ignore users in sites where it is not realistic to enable the policy. For example, no access to help desk, right? Your remote office. The sign risk policy is applied to all browsers traffic and sign using modern authentication, but not to applications where older security protocols. So now let's browse to the sign-in policy, right? Sign-in risk policy. So discard, okay. Again, you have to select the users, conditions, right? Low, medium, high. These are the same settings. Access, whether you grant access or not, right? And that's it. Enforce it on or leave it off. Okay. Right. So if you click here, use risk use, you can see there's only one. That's the admin. Oops. Risky signings. It is the correct account. That should be the account here. I should have one user. Why it's not generating? Let's get back to overview. Okay, let's say risk detections. Okay, I do have one here, right? Medium roles don't require multi-factor authentication, blah, blah, blah. Too many global administrator, but those are vulnerabilities. I should have one risky user as the admin. I don't know why it's not showing. Oh, right, because I already, yeah, I ruled that out actually, because it was here before, right? But my admin user, but I changed my password, so that's no longer a risky user. So, ooh, let's see here. Okay, right, remediated, right? Let's see here, that's the one. I remediated today, that's why. All right, okay, let's close this, and we talk about some of the security best practice, all right? So, yeah, centralize your identity management, enable single sign-on. So the single sign, if you don't have the ADFS, using the Azure AD Connect, seamless or single sign-on works as well. Deploy password management, enforce MFA for all users, right? Should be all users. Use role-based access control and control resource manager resource locations. Guide developers to leverage identity capabilities for SaaS apps and actively monitor for suspicious activities, right? Okay, that's some of the best practice. And now we jump to the self-service password reset, all right? This is, how do I say? The SSPR is one of the uh, huge benefits, right? One of the huge benefits for modern ITs. Because when I do trainings on site for several times, like especially when there are ITs on site, right? Also because I do some end users training, so I often ask the IT like, have you enforced or used SSPR yet? So I think more than 90% of the organizations they have, right? And when they say yes, I can sense there's a relief in their sound, right? They don't have to wake up like in the middle of the night to reset some of the management level people's password, right? They don't have to do that anymore. Okay, right. So yeah, we're dividing into the four parts: reset, authentication methods, restoration, comparing SSPR to MFA. Right. So to configure the SSPR, you first determine who will be able for the use this SSPR. So not everyone, right? So potentially, I think all the C-level people, they have to, right? So from your existing Azure AD tenant or on the Azure portal under the uh, Azure AD, I think it's password reset. So let me just jump into there real quick. I think it's on my IE or, okay, not IE, sorry. Uh, Here, maybe. Oops. No, I forgot which account. My bad. Okay, this is not that one. So this one, I think. Okay, so password reset. So let me go back to here actually. So the Azure AD, right? You just search Azure AD and you go here for the password reset. Okay, click here. Yeah, that's how you where you configure that. So here you can only remember select groups, right? There's only groups here. There's no single user. Notice there's only groups. Okay, and let's switch back to the PowerPoint. Okay, let me minimize this. So after enabling the password reset for users and groups, you pick the number of authentication methods required to reset a password and the number of authentication methods available to a user. So at least one authentication method is required to reset a password, but it's also a good idea to have additional methods available, but the maximum two. All right, okay. So you can choose from email notification, text code, phone number, call, so and security questions. So regarding security, oops, something wrong with my VPN. So let me, okay. So this can be configured to require a certain number of questions to be registered for user in your AD tenant, right? Azure AD tenant, sorry. So in addition, you must configure the number of correct answered questions that are required for successful password reset. Actually, none of these settings here I have to say is should be familiar to user, right? Because you not just from the Office 365 or Microsoft side, from any email you're using or other SaaS apps, you should get something like this. Or if you're using Apple, right? So the Apple ID, sometimes you log into a new phone, or you using the same Apple ID to on a new phone, or download an app or something, or spend money on the App Store, you get at least some of these authentication methods, right, to double verify it's you. Okay, so let's go to the settings actually. So it's here, right? So there's authentication methods. Default is one, so you can choose two. If you choose two, see this one is become available. You can choose office phone number, security questions. You must see how many questions are required, blah, blah, blah. Okay, predefined, you can add predefined, right? All this. Okay. Yeah, actually, I don't prefer none of these questions. Sometimes I don't know why. Sometimes I just give different answer for each one of them. Okay, let's close this. Okay, all right, choose two. This become available. All right, and yeah, that's we discard this. Okay, registration 180 days to reconfirm their authentication information notification, whether to notify the users when their password changes or do some customization for the help desk URL, right? Okay, we don't have this, so let's ignore that. And to show you real quick, go to my, I think IE here, right? See my login here. It's a different account now. You're gonna need more information to keep your account secure, so click next. Right, confirm your current password, re-enter my password. Okay. All right. And that's it, right? I didn't use any secure questions or anything, but this again, it's re-entering my password, right? Okay. Just confirm, sign. Okay. And that's it. It's a really simple step here. I am doing okay. Sorry. So authentication phone is set to blah 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 verify. Email is not configured. Set it up now. So let's set it now, right? So you see authentication email. Let's see. Ooh, I cannot use the same one. So let's use another one. Okay. So email me verification code. Let's go to the other account where I have this. So that's the account I'm having. Go to my email. I have too many demo accounts, to be honest. So I think whenever I have at least 7, right? There are 7. Oof. Okay, that's the code. Let's copy. Go back to here. Verify. Okay. Phone is, I don't want to use my phone, right? So and I don't have this phone number, to be honest. Because if you verify, you cannot text or anything. So yeah, let's ignore that. You should hold this down, right? You should hold this down. I don't want to actually use my phone number for this. Okay. So now let's switch back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So the registration, right? So if you want to users to register for password reset, sorry. Okay, you can require that they register when they sign through Azure AD or Office 365. You can enable this option from your directory as a password reset pane by enabling the require user to register when signing in options in the registration tab. And admin can also require users to re-register after a specific period of time. You can set the number of days. You saw that right from 0 to 108. But we can have set the maximum to 730. Actually, that's the maximum number, right? 730 days to re-enter to change your password. Okay. So after enable this option, when user sign, they see the message that the administrator has required them to verify their authentication information. And there are two methods to register, uh, two mode, not two methods: interrupt and manage. The interrupt mode is a wizard-like experience shown to a user when they register or refresh their security info as signed. The manage mode is part of the user profile and allows them to manage their security info. So previously there were two different ways for users to register to Azure AD, Azure MFA, and SSPR. So now in preview, users can register once and get the benefits of both Azure MFA and SSPR. And you should consider pre-populating some of the authentication data for a user. That way, users don't need to register for password reset before they are able to use SSPR. As long as users have provided the authentication data that meets the policy, right, reset policy you have defined, they are able to reset their password. And finally, let's compare SSPR to MFA, right? So the Azure AD self-service password reset and the MFA may ask for additional information, known as the authentication methods for security information. To confirm you are who you say you are when using the associated features, an administrator can define in policy which authentication methods are available to users of both SSPR and MFA. Some authentication methods may not be available to all features. Microsoft highly recommend admins to enable users to select more than just the minimum required number of authentication methods in case they do not have the access to one, right? Okay, there we go. That's the end of our module 10, right?